Lights, camera, action. 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 Lights, camera, action.
Let's go. I did this and I did that. Hit licks just to get cash. So weight in them zip bags. Met a pimp named Slickback. He told me to keep my game strong. I put a chick mouth.
Alright, what's up, y'all? We here for another episode of the Blaqamore podcast. I got a very special guest with me today. It's Sheriff Mike Hughes. And we're gonna talk a little bit. First, I wanted to get into like voting in general. You know, especially like in our community, we'd be like, our vote don't matter. And I was kind of like that. I'm still kind of like that as far as a president, but I understand that voting locally matters a little more. Do you want to speak on that, or why it's important to vote?
Yeah, I think it's history. You know, history tells us that voting is important. But I think from the Emancipation Proclamation, from civil rights, different things like that, I think over time, minorities, they don't feel like their voice is heard. And I think that's once again because we're the minority. We feel like once we vote, our votes get lost. Things happen to our votes. Our votes don't matter. The people that we vote for don't get in office. And that's a lot of that is attributed to us being a minority. So I can see those frustrations. But in our local elections, like for instance, in our race, initially, we went back the past 4 midterms, which is every opposite of the presidential election. And we looked at the numbers, and the numbers said that on average, about 113,000 people will vote in Douglas County, right? So when you do the math on that, that's about 56,501 for us to win the sheriff's office this year, right? So with the emphasis on Donald Trump, with the emphasis on healthcare, different things like that, here in Douglas County, the voter turnout is expected to be almost 180,000 people, right? So that's, you know, a couple of times more than what we thought would be the average vote count. So when we say our vote isn't important, our vote is very important and vital in local races, because if I need 56,000 people to vote and the black and brown and minority community doesn't show up, then once again, the majority wins, and now status quo is still happening. So it is imperative that people vote if we want change. For instance, our race, the Douglas County Sheriff's Office race, there's been the same sheriff for 24 years. So once again, not only are people not voting, but people aren't being part of the political process, right? So in order to have change and affect change, we need people not only to vote, but we need people to get more involved in the political process and run for offices and bring different thought processes and ideals. Because if we don't, then we'll still, you know, be the same. And we can't complain if we're not here to change the process. So
yeah, me and the homie was just talking about that before you came on your way up here, how we was scrambling, trying to learn everything we can the last few days. Like, we got to be on point year round to know what's going on.
Absolutely.
So what are some things, like, why should we vote for you as opposed to your opponent?
Absolutely. For one, I definitely think that different thought processes and ideals, I think 24 years is entirely too long. If you look at a Supreme Court justice that we just nominated and confirmed in Kavanaugh, that's an appointed position. That's a lifelong appointment. So if Mr. Kavanaugh were to live till he was 100 years old, he would be in that seat. So he's 100 years old. So that's number one, is just getting new ideas and thought processes in politics. And number two is what our platform ideas are. We're focused on community-oriented policing, we're focused on transparency, and we're focused on collaboration. And I think those things are huge in bringing awareness to people and bringing people and meeting them where they are. So for instance, when we say community-oriented policing, I mean throughout the Douglas County, you know, whether it be north, south, east, west, we want to be visible. We want to be initiating events. We want to have bike rallies. We want to hand out back-to-school items. We want to be in our high schools and our colleges and our middle schools. We want to be visible and let people know that law enforcement is here to serve and protect. You know, it's not, you don't have to be afraid. You can make friends. You can you can speak to the police, and I think that helps us solve crimes, and I think that helps us lower crime as well. And then the transparency piece is, once again, when issues are happening in our community, man, just bringing that stuff to the forefront and being able to be held accountable. I think that's also a piece that's missing from minority inclusion in politics, is transparency, and accountability. Mm-hmm. So when people say, hey, we'll elect you, right? And then what's gonna happen? We're not gonna see you no more, and then you're gonna be asking for our vote in 4 years. So for me, I want my feet held to the fire. So if you see something that I'm not doing appropriately or that you don't think is right for any community, call me out. I plan on having forums. I plan on having an updated website. I plan on being active on social media. Call me out. And then lastly, I think the collaborative piece. Our current sheriff has failed to do some things with our crime lab. I don't know if you all are familiar, but Douglas County Sheriff's Office processed a lot of the crimes that happen in our community through Omaha Police Department, through other various agencies here. And our current sheriff and our current mayor and other city administrative leaders, the sheriff didn't want to collaborate and make a merged department as far as the crime lab is concerned. So now Omaha Police Department has their own crime lab, and they process their own crimes through the University of Nebraska Medical Center. So now we have budgetary issues that we got to look at in the sheriff's office. Now we got to see why that collaborative effort didn't work, and how we can move forward, because the information that I got on it was that we can make a university here that's based on crime and forensics, so that we can get people educated, we can get people certified to do different things in our community and law enforcement, and that's an opportunity that I think we missed. So that's why I think you should go for Mike Hughes.
And you was a police officer, right?
Yes.
So what made you want to become a police officer? Because that's not the average for young black men, seem like. What made you want to become a police officer?
Great question. So, growing up, I haven't shared this story too much, just a couple times. When I was about 8 years old, man, one of my cousins was out doing whatever he was doing. He got involved in a bad drug deal, and he ended up running to our crib, running to our house, and he ran into our house, unbeknownst to us. We get a knock at the door. My mom opened the door, and she got shot in the head, man. She got shot in the face. At 8 years old, when that happened, my cousin, he went and hid in the room, you know what I mean? And I'm out trying to get my mom CPR, out trying to save her life, calling 911, just doing different things in order to help my mom, man. And she survived. But in that moment, man, law enforcement, this is the reality for me. They kept me out of the state system. They allowed me to be with my family and friends. They kept me updated on the happenings that was going on with my family. And at that moment, man, I knew like that impacted my life. Like, I want to help people. I want to be there for people when they need it. So growing up, man, I ran the streets. I seen a lot of things, and I just try to separate myself from those things because I had an eye on the prize of helping people, man. So that was the reason why I wanted to become a police officer.
Wow. So when you was a police officer, was there ever a situation where like maybe you knew who you had to arrest or something like that, where it kind of felt like, damn, I don't want to have to do this to you, but you bugging right now or something like that?
Oh man, a lot of times, man, and a lot of it was people that look like me.
Yeah.
Man, you pull people over on traffic stops, you engage people in their homes, man, and what I used to do is I try to educate people as much as possible. I know some people frown upon that, like, oh man, I don't need to be taught how to act, I don't need to be told how to do this and do that, but I think that's where a lot of issues go wrong. Like, for instance, I had a car roll by me, the guy's kind of staring at me. I'm at the gas station, and I felt it kind of odd. People don't just ride by you and look the whole time. They normally kind of just, they kind of turn so you don't see them, So I walk in the gas station, man, and about a minute later, I get an emergency call on the radio. So the emergency call is, officer just tried to pull over the car that just looked at me in hindsight as I figured this out. So officer has his license sirens on, he's trying to pull the car over, the car won't stop. So come back out, jump in my cruiser, I'm going to the scene, right? So the guy ended up having a warrant for child abuse, child neglect. So we cuff him up, we do our thing with him, and the officer that's transporting the individual or arrested the individual asked me to sit there and watch the car so the car could be towed, right? So we're in this apartment complex, and I guess the guy that owns the car, or the guy that was driving the car, is going back to the guy that owns the car's apartment, if this is making sense. So while I'm sitting there waiting on the tow truck pulls up, this guy comes running out the apartment. Man, that's my car, that's my car. I'm like, all right, man, let me see what I can do. You know, we already have it hooked up to the tow truck. So once it's hooked up to the tow truck, it's out of my hand, right? So I'm like, hey, man, let me see what I can do for you. He's like, man, fuck you. Man, you ain't this. You an Uncle Tom. You're not here to help me, X, Y, Z. And I'm like, listen, man, I'm not here to hurt you either.
Right.
So I'm sitting here trying to talk to the tow truck driver to see about getting your car off the tow.
Tripping with me.
Right. So my my tow truck driver like, it's gonna cost you $50 because it's a call. Now I'm here. So he like, all right, I'm gonna get you $50. So we trying to lower the car for my man. My man said, I can cuss, right? I think I just cussed.
Yeah.
So my man said, and this is just me being honest, he said, fuck you, man. If I see you on the streets, I'm gonna kill you. Right? So I said, man, you talking to me? I said, man, you can't do that. Like, that's a threat. You can go to jail for it. I'm telling him, I'm trying to coach him up.
Yeah.
My man take a swing at me.
Oh my God.
So I gotta put my hands on him. So guess what he screams? Police brutality. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So these are the things, the dynamics of law enforcement that I want people to understand. Like, yeah, you don't want people to put their hands on you. You don't want people to talk to you crazy, but you got to know your rights and your privileges, right? You can't just be out here assuming things. I know my rights. I know that I don't have to give you my name. Yes, you do.
It don't work like that.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and that's just an instance. So let's stay on that. I don't have to give you my name. That's part of the education piece for me. Yes, you do. Because guess what? If not, you're going to go to jail as John Doe or Jane Doe. And guess what? We're going to fingerprint you, and then we're going to find out who you are.
Either way.
So the appropriate thing to do, I think, in these instances, I'm not saying be compliant. I'm saying be compliant, but I'm saying law enforcement should be voluntary compliance. You should be willing to comply. So when you don't comply, then that's when people get dragged out of their vehicles. That's when people get upset. That's when people rights and stuff get taken away. That's when you get put on the ground and handcuffs, different things like that. So those are some of the hot topic items that I want to talk about, that I want to get engaged with the community and let people know, like, law enforcement is not against you. However, when put in certain circumstances, you have to react.
Do you think like you was tested more than like your white counterparts?
Absolutely. I think that being a black man, being a minority, and having on a police uniform were all like negatives, right? So the first one is, oh, he's black. The second one is, wait, he's black and he's the police? Like, he ain't even for me, you know? So, yeah, man, I definitely think there was negative aspects to it, and dealing with people that look like me was some of the worst situations that I was ever in.
Do you feel like, was it ever, because you know we all human, did you ever feel like, man, fuck these niggas, and ever just get frustrated till you thought about letting out your frustrations on them just because of how they was treating you?
No, I actually felt the opposite. I felt like if I fed into that, then that would continue that negative perception of law enforcement. So, like I said, when I encountered people and they were hostile or they were upset, it was always a teaching moment for me. Just trying to educate people on stuff. Like, people be like, man, you harassing me. You know, you put me over because I'm black. And the challenge that I would give people is, okay, after this traffic stop, whether you get a ticket or whatever that happens, you know, I challenge you to drive down the street. Now, I work from 2:30 to 11, right? So we're talking after 5 o'clock. We're dark sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I say, I challenge you to drive down the street at 9 o'clock at night and get behind 5 cars. Okay? And as you get behind those 5 cars, I need you to tell me who's driving those cars. Okay? Now, some people will say, well, you know, if it's a box Chevy or a Caprice or something like that with 22-inch rims, you know, that's a given, you know who's behind that vehicle, right? But guess what? I pulled over a Chevy 22-inch rims, and it was a 65-year-old lady behind me.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
That coming.
So once again, I think it's a learning opportunity, and I challenge people that have that mindset. Drive down the street, get behind a couple cars. You tell me who's driving those cars, and how many people are in them, and what they got in those cars. And I think that's the challenge for law enforcement. Is if I see you driving down the street and your tag's been expired for 2 years, right? And I pull you over. I'm not pulling you over because you're who's driving the car. I'm pulling the car over because the car ain't supposed to be on the road. You feel me? So then when I walk up to the window and you're like, man, you harassing me, you doing this, you doing that. Sir, man, have your driver's license. No, you can't have my driver's license. I ain't done nothing wrong. First tell me why you pulling me over. I just told you, sir, I pulled you over because your registration has been expired for 2 years. You know, in those situations, they escalate, man, and as a law enforcement person or a citizen in our community, we have to look at it from both perspectives. So law enforcement should be able to de-escalate that situation, and as a citizen, you should be able to go into that situation and be like, okay, I did something wrong, or okay, yeah, my registration is expired, you know, let me take this ticket, or yeah, I was going 50 and 30. Let me, yeah, you got to take it sometime, and we have to be accountable for our actions at the same time.
So how did you feel since you was a police officer, like during, or still going on, like the Black Lives Matter versus Blue Lives Matter, and you being a black man in the blue suit? How was that for you?
Once again, man, it's very divisive. It's divisive on both sides. It pits us versus them and them versus us. And then when I take off the uniform, I'm them. And then when I put it on, I'm us. And when I take it off, I'm us. You know, so it's a big divisive topic in our communities, and it goes back to even some of the rhetoric that's going on now with immigration and different things like that. It's very divisive. So on the streets, man, when I'm patrolling, you know, people, Black Lives Matter, yes, they do. Guess what? And I'm black, and I got on this uniform, and my life matter too. I don't want to get shot and killed today. You know what I'm saying? Just like I don't want to see nobody get shot and killed today. So I think personally, like, oh, that's great. Like bringing awareness to situations and topics. I think if we're talking about those things and we're trying to make change, it's huge. But if we're just talking about things to stir the pot and keep things going, then I think it's a negative aspect on both sides.
How'd you feel like most of the other cops here, like especially like the white? What? Me personally, I've been blessed. I haven't really had too many negative experiences with the police, but everybody I know firsthand has, and then we all see what goes on. But like, did you feel like the OPD as a whole even didn't even affect y'all like that? Or?
Yeah, that's a fair question. So when I was policing, I was in Georgia. I was in Savannah, Georgia. I had joined the military fresh out of college. Well, not fresh out of college, but after college, and that took me to Georgia. And then after my military, I became a police officer in Georgia. And man, talking to people, we would have these conversations, man, because I've always been about that education piece and just learning. And man, when I would talk to people, it wasn't that they wanted to harm people. And this is just me speaking real. People are scared, man. People are in fear. So not only are the law enforcement officers in fear, but the public, the citizens are in fear, right? So a lot of people don't know how to handle that fear. So I attribute it to how I like to tell people is like, it's like somebody growing up in Millard that's never been in a fight, never been in an argument, never had any type of crazy situation that they lived in. They grew up in a big house, 5-bedroom, 3 baths, and they had friends and they tried marijuana and it was fun and they drunk with their parents and different things like that, right? That's a different upbringing. So you take that person and you plant them in North Omaha, right? In a precinct that's heavily cultured, it's urban, right? And you put that person in North Omaha and you say, all right, you got the training, you are a police officer, you're certified, now go police.
Exactly, yeah.
But guess what you haven't trained to? You haven't trained to that culture, right? So now I pull you over and you just speaking your culture. You like, man, this is what it is, bro. I ain't done nothing to you, X, Y, Z. Why you pulling me over?
They don't know what's going on.
They don't know how to handle that.
Scared.
Right? So that first reaction, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just explaining what I've seen and what I know. First reaction is I'm about to grab what I know that's gonna protect me. Whether it's a taser, whether it's my firearm, right? And I'm gonna draw it. And that's where everything goes wrong. So one, you got a cultural imbalance, right? And you haven't trained to that diversity piece, right? So, and then when you take it a step further and say, okay, we train to the diversity piece, but now you have to train the fear. So, like I said, if I have never been punched before, and I've never punched nobody before in a real life setting, and I've never been in an altercation, I've never been in a situation that's detrimental, how do you handle that?
Exactly.
You see what I mean? And then it's on the vice versa of that, as black and brown people, right? If we know these things to be true, we know that black people aren't in law enforcement that are at a high rate, right? So white men predominantly are police in our communities. I'm not saying that we have to be on their level, but I think we have to take accountability for some of the things that we do. And I say that to say, all right, yeah, I may not be working right now, or things may be tough. I got a headlight out, right? Officer pulls you over. You know your headlight is out, right? Take that L. And guess what? When your headlight is out, you can't be riding around with weed in your car. You can't be riding around with open containers in your car, illegal guns, different things. Like, that's how these things snowball, right? So a headlight leads to all this other stuff. You see what I mean? So I guess my point would be is, in law enforcement, we have to train culture, we have to train fear in the communities, we have to teach people and educate people on that accountability piece and what laws and stuff are created in our state legislature.
And let that be, you heard how he was talking, because I'm big on that too, like your own kind, policing your own kind, because you understand another, which is another reason to make sure you go out there and vote for them. Damn, and this question slipped my mind. Oh, so has it been, or maybe I should say, how important is it to like just follow the law? Like you may pull somebody over and they in the wrong, but maybe they got like a very understanding story. Do you ever let them slide sometimes, or do you think that's right to let them slide sometimes, or is it just like the law is the law? How do you handle those situations?
That's a great question. So I'll speak to the training that I received. In Georgia, we had discretion. So the letter of the law was written, but you had discretion on what you can do in that situation. So for me, we were trained is that there's no legal reason to break the law. Does that make sense?
There's no legal reason to break the law.
Right. So, and this is the example that we used to get. So you pull a car over that's speeding, that's going 100 miles an hour, right? They blowing through lights, they doing all this stuff. You pull the car over, and the person driving says, "My wife is pregnant. She's about to she's in labor right now. I'm trying to get her to the hospital." Is that a legal reason to break the law?
It sounds like a good reason.
It sounds like a good reason.
I don't know if it's legal, but it's
right.
a good reason.
So those are the totalities of it, right? So guess what you can do as an officer? You can write that person a ticket. You can escort them to the look. You can write that person a ticket. You can call the ambulance and have a woman taken to the hospital. You can let them go. You can follow them to the hospital, make sure they're good. Like there's a lot of different things that you could do as an officer in that situation. And guess what? Not every officer is going to do the same thing. So if it's me, I pull them over. I'm like, oh man, how far is the hospital? Okay, can I get an ambulance here? Would it be safer for me to get an ambulance here or let these people go so that they can get to the hospital? So those are the things that you got to play in your mind. And I guess the answer to your question would be, it would literally be on a case-by-case basis. You know what I mean?
Well, help me with this. Is there ever a time where it makes sense for the officer to just write the person in that situation a ticket and go about his day?
You said, when is it necessary?
Is there ever a good idea? I can't imagine when it's a good idea for an officer to just write that person a ticket in the situation you gave.
But people do it.
Y'all don't feel like that should... Well, I guess you're not making the rules, but...
Yeah, that's right. and that's it. So it's literally the discretion of the officer. So once again, it's back to that cultural dynamic. It's back to those lived experiences, right? So I know if I was in a situation like that, I would understand. Yeah. Like, oh man, yeah, I get it. Is she okay? All right, the hospital was 20 minutes away. I can get you an ambulance here in 5, and we can get her taken care of, and you don't have to worry about it. Or if the hospital is 3 minutes away, all right, yeah, You go to the hospital. Matter of fact, I'm gonna come check on you and make sure everything is good. You know what I mean? So it once again is just that different lived experience. It's the different culture, the different dynamics. You may get an officer that's black and white and say, the letter of the law says you were going 60 into 30. I gotta write this ticket no matter what. You see what I mean? And you may get another one that has, man, I understand, I get it.
Are you aware of officers who did behave that way, and were they ever dealt with, or is it just letter of the law? He was just doing his job.
It's the letter of the law. He
That
was
is
just
crazy.
doing his job.
That is crazy. That's why we should go vote for him. So you said you was in the military, and I think I read that you went to Afghanistan.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What was that like?
I'm gonna tell you this, man. I lived some things and I learned some things, man. And after serving in Afghanistan, I have a new perspective on life, man. I had a new perspective on life. For instance, man, it's a third world country. So what we take for granted over here, man, like grass,
Jesus.
concrete, trees.
Ain't got no trees over there?
Man, and when I say trees, I mean like we can go plant them. We can build up an area. We got the technology and the advancements to create communities. Like over there, man, they lived in mud huts.
Hey.
Like no windows. Like no electricity. So like when I walk the streets, man, like if I'm going to work or something, and you know there's a better travel route to walk through the grass to get there faster. And I walk around as far as I can on the sidewalk to avoid stepping in the grass because I didn't see grass for almost a year.
Wow.
Like it's just different
What do they
perspectives.
eat? Can they
man.
eat fruit and vegetables though?
Man, they do their own thing. They do farm and different things like that. But like I'm talking clothes, man. Like we would see kids walking down the street, you know, with no clothes on, or using the bathroom on the side of the road, different things like that, and all that stuff we take for granted here. Where you can drive your car, you can go to a restaurant, you can go, you know, use a facility at a hotel or whatever that may be, man. And I had a new outlook on life when I returned back home.
Yeah, that sounds crazy. Was you scared? Like, what was your situation over there? Was you over there, like, was it bombs going off, or like you was just stationed somewhere? What was it?
Yep. So, man, yeah, when we was over there, it was literally war, man. It was, you could ride down the street and be engaged in combat. My unit was responsible for, man, various different things. We provided security elements. We did transportation. We delivered items. We were on the road, like literally driving the streets of Afghanistan almost every day. So it was a hostile environment, man. And I would tell you this, I was more in fear of policing than I was at war.
Really?
Really.
You were more in fear of being a police officer than in Afghanistan.
Really. Yep.
Why?
So in Afghanistan, I knew that it was a reality of what could happen. I knew that I could be bombed. I knew that I could be shot. I knew these things could happen
So you're
instantaneously.
like in a different mode over there.
Here, policing, right? I got a fear for people that look like me just to come out and attack me. I gotta pull a car over and engage somebody that I don't know what they have. You know what I mean? I don't know what that person's reaction is to me. At war, I knew that I wasn't liked and that I wasn't wanted. You see what I'm saying? And I didn't have to be friendly. I didn't have to engage with people. I just knew that if something went off over here, then I would handle it this way. I knew that if, you know, there was times where we rode and, you know, a couple seconds later, bombs blew up behind us. You know, it was a given, right? But policing, you never know what's about to happen. Every situation is different. Every call is different. Every traffic stop is different. There's no such thing as routine in law enforcement.
Wow, it's crazy. So what is what's probably your craziest police story?
Oh man, that's a great one. I'll try to be brief with it as well. There's two instances actually that helped shape my thought processes. The first one is a story that I tell on the campaign trail and to some of my students that I engage with. Had this young man, I went to his house on a domestic call. I arrested his mother. And when I did it, I was sympathetic. I was empathetic. I showed, great compassion. I was professional. And that young man said, hey, I like what you done. Like, yeah, you took my mom to jail, but I looked up to it. Like, I want to be a police officer. So he asked me to mentor him. So I did. We went to lunch. We did different things. I kind of gave him the education on how to become a police officer, what my day in and day out looked like. And a couple months later, man, I get a call to his house. Same situation, domestic. This time he was trying to defend his mother who was being beaten by a boyfriend. And she wanted her son to go to jail for defending her, right? So I'm like, I'm not about to take him, so once again, that's discretion, right? So I'm not about to take him to jail for defending you. I need to be taking your boyfriend to jail, right? So we did that, we move on. I get another call to the house, a couple weeks later, that she kicked him out of the house. She wanted him out the house, and that he took her food stamp card, right? So he, talking to him, he says, well, I took the food stamp card because she kicked me out. I don't have nothing to eat. The people's houses that I'm trying to go stay in, I'm trying to, pay what I weigh. So my thoughts on it is, if I go stay with somebody, let me go buy some food, right? So she says, no, I want him arrested. So now, in this situation, I call my boss, like, hey, I don't want to make this decision. What should I do? He's like, man, you got to arrest him. So I arrest him, right? So in Georgia, as an adult, you're 17 as an adult age. So he goes to big boy jail. He goes to adult jail. Obviously, he's 17. So they charge him, or we charge him with felony credit card fraud, and he's convicted, and he gets a year in jail. Right? So in Georgia, they had this thing called first offenders law, where if you do something that's not necessarily a heinous crime or that's a violent crime, and you commit a felony, they'll give you a rehab process that you can go through, and if you complete it, they'll let you out and they'll remove the felony from your record, which is huge, right? 6 months go by, they let my man out. He completes this program. He's homeless again. He calls me, Officer Hughes, man, I need your help. All right, so we sit down. Man, I'm giving him clothes off my back. I'm providing him with garments, underwear, different things like that, man. And we got him hooked up with Job Corps to be a welder. And we had a date set of, I think, of January of that next year for him to go. It was about October, November. So now we got to figure out what we're gonna do in the meantime. Okay, so can't bring him in my house. I have a wife. I had a kid, one child at the time. You know what I'm saying? So I was literally taking him from one homeless shelter to the next. Because in Georgia, you only can stay in a homeless shelter for a week because they got to cycle in new people that need services. So they would let you stay for a week. You have to go leave for a week and you can come back. So, man, he wakes up one day and he makes a decision. His decision was, I'm going to go to Walmart. I'm going to buy a hammer. My mom's ex-boyfriend is a taxi driver. I know he has money on him. He hides in the bushes, jumps out the bushes. He hits my man in the head 15 times with a hammer. Leaves him for dead, tries to take his car, but he never drove before, so he doesn't know how to finagle the car to drive it off, so he runs off. Takes the man's cell phone, breaks the cell phone in half, puts it in the trash. So at this time, I'm working with the crime suppression unit or the gang unit, and I get a call like, hey, we got some information about the young man you've been helping. Can you locate him? So I, being the police and different things like that, having connections, I find him. He's in a hotel. So I walk up on him like, hey man, what you doing? What's going on? At this time, I didn't know what was going on. I'm just locating him. So like, man, what's going on? He's like, nothing, man. I've been doing these odd jobs. I got some money. I know I ain't got nowhere to go. So I got me a hotel room, got me some food. Like, all right, cool. Well, guess what though? These detectives want to holler at you.
So this whole time you didn't know.
I didn't know what was going on. Jeez. So man, we take him downtown. We interview him. Man, and I put handcuffs on him for the last time. Man, he was convicted in the spring of 16. He was sentenced to life in jail for attempted murder, for various robbery crimes.
So that dude lived?
The man lived, man, and he lived, and the man is paralyzed from the neck down. He has a protective helmet that he has to wear to protect his brain because his skull was so fractured and battered. Yeah, man, and if the man succumbs to his injuries, then they can, charge my man with the death. They can give him the death penalty, man. So that instance right there helped shape my thought process on I have to be more proactive with young people. I have to figure out how to help young people be productive citizens in our community. So I sat down with my wife, married 2 kids, and we decided to move back to Omaha, man. And here I am working with that same age group, about 16 to 24, in a nonprofit that's a scholarship program that provides mentoring, counseling, and guidance to young people so they don't have to go through that path. The second story I'll leave you with is, and this will tie in a couple things. Mental health, I think, and racial profiling. So one of my good friends, man, I still talk to him to this day. We're out patrolling. We get a call of a black man walking down the street, right? So when we hear those calls, things immediately trigger like, well, it's either this dude is really doing something or this dude ain't doing nothing at all, right? It's either one end of the spectrum. So we pull up on my man's, we're like, man, what you doing? Oh, he like, man, I just got me some legs. He just got some action with a girl. And I'm just speaking frank because that's what the conversation was. He's like, man, I'm just walking, trying to get to the bus. I'm like, all right, man, let me check you out. Get his driver's license, no issue. Oh, man, you good to go. So in that moment, we get a call of shots fired, man. Man, that's at a Chuck E. Cheese, brother. Ooh. Chuck E. Cheese.
This is here or down there?
This is in Georgia.
Okay.
So we go lights and sirens, man. We get to the Chuck E. Cheese. There's nothing to be found. So our dispatchers or our radio keeps updating us like, okay, now they're in vehicles. They're driving down the street. And I would say they're probably a half a mile from where we at. So we lights and sirens. We going, boom. The locations keep changing. So we keep getting updates. So now instead of going this way, we're doubling back. We're going different places, trying to find out where we're at, or try to find out the location. So we get one call like, hey, he's at the light. And I can't give you like a proximate location because we're not in Georgia, but he's at a light and he's standing outside the vehicle shooting at a car. Ooh, okay. So we pulling up. We get to the intersection, nothing, right? So now we get an update that they're at this specific Walgreens or CVS in Savannah. So we're like, all right, boom. So now this is probably 2 miles away from where we at. So now we're turning around, we're lights and sirens getting back. So I finally catch up to him, okay? So the car that's being chased is crashed into a pole to set the stage for you. There's another car sitting in the middle of the intersection with the door open, the car's running, okay? So when I get out of my car, I hear a gunshot. So now I gotta retreat. Now I can't, it's dark. I can't see what's going on and I can't pull directly up on the car, so I'm far way back. So boom, we hear a gunshot. Like, okay, now I gotta wait on other people to get there so I can't engage with this person. I could be killed. So we get there, other officers come, we're marching down, we got our weapons drawn, trying to figure out what's going on, man. And I see a young lady slumped over in a driver's seat. And I see her friend or her cousin at the time, whoever it was, she's crying, visibly shaking, obviously. So I'm like, what happened? What's going on? Verbatim now, he killed her. He shot her because he was jealous. Okay? So where is he at? He ran off. Okay? So now we got, I'm radioing in helicopters. I'm radioing the Georgia State Troopers. We got every single officer on the street at this location. So we're looking. We don't find nothing. So I'm like, you sure he left? She like, yeah, sure he left. So I go, the ambulance is here. We're ready to take the young lady to get her services. And my man, I look down and there's feet right there underneath the car.
Nigga hiding under the car?
Guess what, man? So, to bring the story back, so my man is at Chuck E. Cheese, the female that was shot is at Chuck E. Cheese with her family celebrating a kid's birthday, obviously. They had a surprise party where family members came in town that she hadn't seen before hadn't seen in a long time. So she's hugging people, doing different things that, they're being family. So the boyfriend walks into Chuck E. Cheese, see her hugging individuals and gets upset. Ask her to come outside, he starts shooting at her. Jump in the car, they take off, trying to get away. So he's chasing them down the street, shooting at them. They stop at stoplights, he's jumping out the car, shooting at her. So when he jumped out the car, he hit her in her side and in her shoulder while she's driving. She started to succumb to her injuries, and she crashes into the pole as he's chasing him. He gets out of the car, he walks up on her, he shoots her in the head, dead, and then tells her, "This is what you made me do." And he shoots himself in the head. So when he shoots himself in the head, he literally rolls underneath the car. I don't know. I couldn't tell you how it happened. I just know that we were searching for the guy, and when I came to help get her out the car, he was laying underneath the vehicle. So those two stories I play in my mind a lot, because one aspect is a young person needing guidance and assistance and made some tough choices. The other one is a mental health issue and domestic violence issue that time and time again happens in our community. Like, you didn't have to kill her.
Right.
You didn't have to kill yourself. Like, what are we doing? As a society, what are we doing as brown and black people? What are we doing to get better?
What could, because the first situation, you can kind of be more proactive, I guess. With mental health, what can you do?
With mental health, I think you have to have honest conversations, man, and you have to be willing to accept help. So if somebody comes to you and they're like, "Man, you good? Like, what's going on with you? Like, you haven't been yourself lately." Like, I know it's hard for the person that's going in that situation. Like, "Man, ain't nothing wrong with me. I'm cool." But as a friend and as a relative, you got to be able to offer that person some type of assistance. And you got to be able to understand what that assistance is and be able to research those type of things. I think our white counterparts, they understand that.